In this video we're going to look at test-driven development, or issue-driven development if you like, and how we can actually go ahead and use that within the GitHub environment. So I've gone ahead and recreated this project, which is simply just a README file within an empty project, which I've also published on GitHub. If we go into the project, we can actually use the issues system to actually keep track of what we need to do. So if we select issues on the right, we can create a new issue here. So if we open up the README file that we've created within this project, we can see that it just says this is a README. And the issue could be the fact that the sentence wasn't actually capitalized, nor was there a full stop, which would then allow us to go ahead and create an issue for poor grammar. So if we save this issue now, we're going to be able to refer to this later on. If we look at our project again, we can see that we don't have a license in our project, which could be a second issue that we can create. So if we click on New Issue, which simply says that a separate file should be created called license.txt, and that new file should contain a license. So if we go ahead back across to the licenses overview, we can see that we're creating a list here. This could be considered similar to a backlog within an agile environment. So you could, if you wanted, go ahead and actually create all of these issues as though they were tests that you were going to create. So if you went ahead and created a list of tests that you would actually need completing to be able to be satisfied with a user story in an agile environment, you could go ahead and create an issue for each of the specific points. I'm going to go ahead and add one more issue, which will be index.html file should exist. And this will be the main page that we're going to create, so we'll create this new issue. And if we look at the overview again, we can see that we now have 3 open issues. When we're using issues, we can of course go ahead and add more comments to them. So if we wanted to actually discuss whether this should be sentence case or title case, we could go ahead and actually have a conversation here, which is especially useful if you have multiple contributors to a project. You can also see on the right that we have this labels option. This allows us to specify what type of issue this is, so whether it's a bug or if we want help from another contributor, or if this is an enhancement. And we can of course have multiple options. So if we select that we're going to call this an enhancement, we can close this label, and this will mark it as an enhancement, which will allow us to filter later on. So if we have a sprint which is dedicated to bug issues, we can filter and only see all of the outstanding bugs. We can also go ahead and create milestones. We don't actually have any open milestones at the moment, but if you're working, for example, in an agile environment, you may want to specify that a specific issue needs to be resolved by the end of a sprint, or before a version release in a more traditional environment. So you could say that a feature will be implemented for version 2, which means that you don't need to worry about it for version 1. We can also assign issues to different people. Here we only have the option to assign this to myself, but if we have other people working on the project or the contributors, they could be listed there and we could obviously select them. We can also describe whether we want to see notifications about this issue. So if this issue is going to take us a couple of days to resolve and there's an ongoing conversation, we may want to see what the actual conversation is about, and so we may want to receive notifications. We also have, as the actual owner of the issue, the ability to lock it. This means that it cannot be reopened later on, which is not really something that is going to happen very often. But if it's a controversial topic which has a lot of debate around it, it may be in your best interests to lock issues once a certain position has been established. So let's go ahead and actually resolve this. So we can say that sentence case is going to be used here, and you'll have to ignore my poor spelling. So we can go ahead back across to our file and say that sentence case should be used, which means that that should be an uppercase T and we should have a full stop at the end. If we save that change and then commit it, we can simply say that we've changed it to sentence case, and then we can upload that onto the GitHub remote server. We then have a couple of options as to how we actually go about closing this. So I'm just going to open another tab here, and we'll see that within the GitHub test project we can actually refer to this issue, this actual commit. So if we go into this commit and copy it, when we're actually editing our commit here, we can say that we've closed the issue using this specific commit value. We can then close and comment. So we add our commit message there, which is closed as per, and then the commit number, and then it's automatically marked as closed. We could of course go ahead and reopen this issue if there was any changes, or if the actual issue wasn't resolved properly, but this is normally where an issue will be left alone. Either that or it would be locked, because obviously, as we mentioned earlier, we wanted the discussions on this topic to stop. If we go ahead and look at our other issues, however, we can see that we still have 2 outstanding with this one closed. So let's go ahead and actually assign these to ourselves, and we're not going to worry about all of the other details. So we've assigned that one to ourselves, and then if we go back to the issues and assign this one to ourselves, and we can also go ahead and actually resolve these very quickly. So we've created our index, which will resolve issue 3. And we've created our license.txt, which will resolve issue 2. And we've obviously added our license in here. So knowing that these issues are number 2 and number 3 respectively, when we're actually making our commit, we can say closes #2 and closes #3. This means that we don't need to worry about adding too much detail here, because when we commit this and push it up onto the GitHub repo, so if we look at the latest commit, which is in blue here, and highlight over #2, we can see that #2 is linked to license should be included, which is our issue, and #3 is linked to index.html should exist. If we actually look in the commit history as well, these are also linked here. If we click on it, it will redirect us to the actual issue it closes, and you can see here that it is closed. If we look at the actual comments here as well, we can see that a comment has been added saying close this issue from the commit, and it also provides a link to the actual commit here. If we go back across to our overview of the issues and refresh again, we can see that these have also been closed here. And this reinforces the fact that you can use the issues as a project backlog or as a set of goals. And simply by using a standardized format, which is the word closes, space, hash, and then the number of the issue, you can actually manage the issues or the outstanding backlog, however you want to use it, from the actual Git interface itself. And this also eliminates, or significantly reduces at least, the amount of time that you need to spend working on your actual commit messages. There are a couple of other keywords that you can use in place of closes, for example fix or fixes, or resolve or resolves. But it's normally easiest to decide on one single keyword to use throughout and use that consistently. One final point is the fact that I have used multiple sections here, multiple issues have been closed at once, and as many issues as what you want can be changed together just by adding a comma separated list. If you just want to have one single closes comment, that's fine. And you can of course add other text after this, if you wanted to make the actual commit message even clearer. But when you have access to both the commit message itself as well as the actual issue, the actual content of the commit message itself isn't really a huge concern. In the next section we're going to take a look at some of the other screens within Git, such as the gist option as well as things like wikis, which are all available to us when we're creating projects with GitHub. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it.